Namaste and welcome to this edition of The Nation at 5. I'm Anand Narsimhan coming to you live from the CNN News 18 newsroom. Ladies and gentlemen, the spotlight was turned towards the Supreme Court, where it was the government's turn to stand up and not just counter the arguments made by those who are trying to push for the choice of wearing hijab in classrooms and trying to make it an aspect of dignity, etc. The government turned around and cited not just the incidents in Iran, but also said that the entire aspect has a political angle to it, because it was only after the Campus Front of India, the student wing of the Popular Front of India, made its entry and inroads into that college in Hubli, that this entire fracas started and the entire argument started in the first place. So the government very clearly coming out and saying that it started, it was not there till 2019, 2020, 2021. This whole aspect started only when the PFI got involved. Tushar Mehta further saying that a mention in the Quran will not make hijab essential. And he also argued that wearing a hijab is not an essential religious practice in Islam. The example of women against raising their voice in Iran was cited. Also the fact that in Iran it's being enforced as a cultural practice and not as an essential religious practice. The government arguing, as far as PFI is concerned, that there was no hijab that was being worn in 2004. It was all started only in 2021. On the other hand, Dushyant Dave, representing the petitioners challenging the Karnataka High Court judgment, argued that hijab is connected to the dignity of a Muslim woman, just like a Hindu woman who covers her head with the pallu of a sari. A similar argument which was made by JDS Neta CM Ibrahim. So Dave argued that girls wearing hijab to school does not violate anybody's peace and safety, adding that there is certainly no danger to tranquility. Ananya now joining us with more some very, very bizarre arguments that were made by those who are challenging the High Court order, but the government putting matters as they were. The fact that there is a political angle to it, the fact that women across the world are raising their voice against this sign symbol of patriarchy, but most importantly that it is not an essential religious practice as is being argued by those challenging the High Court judgment.
Well, definitely, Anand, this is the line of arguments adopted by the government of Karnataka through Solicitor General Tushar Mehta and also Advocate General of Karnataka, Prabhulinga Navadgi. But first up with Tushar Mehta, he started off his arguments with the PFI angle, clearly saying that until December 2021, there was no hijabs inside educational institutions in Karnataka and there was no one backing for it as well. But what happened in December 2021 was that the Popular Front of India came up with the social media, in fact, a program wherein they said that there should be a hijab and the girls should be wearing hijab. In fact, this happened after a few women had actually gone to ABVP protest, and then the PFI came into action, did this propaganda, and later on agitations erupted in the state of Karnataka, particularly in the Udupi district of Karnataka, wherein students started protesting, and in fact from the other side, some students wearing saffron shawls also came in. So now solicitor also pointed out that it was the Popular Front of India and its student wing, that is the Campus Front of India, that was responsible for, in fact, the agitations in Karnataka. And also he very clearly said that the students were acting on instructions and these protests were not particularly organic in nature. Apart from that, he also cited the example of Iran, wherein he said that in countries like Iran, which are constitutionally Islamic in nature, which are governed by Islamic laws, women are actually protesting against hijab. They say that it is definitely mentioned in the Quran, but then it is not an essential religious practice under the Quranic inscriptions. In fact, he also defended the government's order, clearly saying that the state government has clear orders to pass such kind of a direction. And he also said that the government order was religious neutral. It was not against a particular community. He said that it is not that only the girls who were wearing hijab were prohibited from doing so. It was also the people who were wearing saffron shawls who have been prohibited by not only the government order but also the Karnataka High Court order, which does not only ban hijab but all kind of religious attires inside an educational institution. This was the line of argument that were adopted by Tushar Mehta. While on the other end, Mr. Dushyant Dave, who was appearing for one of the petitioners into this particular case, said that the wearing of a hijab is very, very similar to a Hindu woman covering her head with a pallu, and this is what is dignity. However, the judge countered this submission by clearly saying that the the definition of dignity changes from time to time and place to place. So these were the sum and substance of today's hearing. But what is very, very essential is at this point of time, the government, the Karnataka government through Solicitor General cited a very crucial example of Iran wherein the girls and women are actually protesting against hijab, which is being pressed as a cultural practice and not
the interesting aspect,
religious practice.
yeah. Yes, the fact of the matter is that in Iran, it's not an essential religious practice. It is a cultural norm which is being mandated, and even ethnic minorities and non-Muslim groups in Iran are being forced to wear this. Now, Mahsa Amini has now been announced as a Kurdish Zoroastrian who was forced to wear it, and that's why she was assaulted and mistreated by this moral police. And that's why it's not just people of Iran across Iran, but also Zoroastrian community across the world. Zoroastrians, who we know as Parsis in India, a Zoroastrian community across the world is also called out this kind of moral policing and brutalizing and suppression of minority voices in Iran. But more importantly, Iran enforcing this not as an essential religious practice, but as a cultural one. And that's where the big demarcation is. And that's where the argument of those challenging this petition is fraught or perhaps wrought with fallacies or misinformation. The other part is in the holy book. Does the word hijab come with respect to attire of a person, or it comes with another philosophical or metaphorical reference to a distance that should be kept? That is the other part of interpretation. So selectively interpreting the book, that is going to be another argument that should be raised and questioned in terms of what is the interpretation or what is the context in the book, and what way is it being interpreted by those trying to argue it in courts. Now, we've got Pathikrit Pain joining us and Dr. Lubna Kamal joining us. Just quickly, Ananya, does the hearing continue into tomorrow? What happens next?
Well, yes, Anand, the hearing would continue at around 10:45 a.m. in the morning tomorrow, and the arguments from the government's end would continue. Mr. AG, who is Prabhuling Alamadagi for the Karnataka government, would be continuing in argument. And Anand, the very, very important aspect which I actually missed out on is that the petitioners who were arguing before the Karnataka High Court that hijab is a very, very essential religious practice actually took a U-turn in the Supreme Court of India, where they said don't consider it as an essential religious practice, but understand that it is a very, very important aspect of the Islamic religion and women want to do it. And that is what a U-turn that has been taken by, in fact, the petitioners before the Supreme Court of India, while before the Karnataka High Court, for the 10 days that this year, for the 10 days that the hearing had continued, they had...
Yeah, they had continued to push that it is an essential religious practice, so they are now making a U-turn. So clearly, the grounds on which they are making the argument, those itself are shifting, and that itself raises huge amount of question on the actual motive behind this entire petition and what they want to drive at or what they want to arrive at. Scholars across the board, across the spectrum, nationally and internationally, have said that this is not an essential religious practice. It is something which is being pushed and trying to be made it as a cultural norm or a cultural practice, but that also is not relevant and that also is being questioned. Those grounds are also being questioned. Now, thank you for your inputs, Ananya. Going across to Dr. Lubna Kamal and Pathik Ripai. Dr. Lubna Kamal, some of the arguments that are being made in 2022 India is shocking, because the core Islamic world itself is rebelling against it. They are themselves breaking out of these shackles, and there are people here trying to argue on behalf of young, impressionable girls that they should actually be covered head to toe and sent into classrooms.
See, this might be politically motivated, and there might be the role of this some local organization, and that is why this should be thoroughly investigated. That is the first thing. The second thing is that why is that women's dress is under scanner every now and then? If girls start wearing mini skirts and shorts to colleges and schools, that will definitely make news. That would stir the hornet's nest again. Because my colleague, I am a faculty in a medical college. My colleague decided to wear jeans to college one day, and the principal said that you cannot do that. So why is it that, why cannot they have the right to dress or undress as per their choice? Why is it that someone has to tell
because
some
because
male has
because you would understand the argument there that every institution has the right to form its own laws. So every school has the right to form its own dress code, and what
yes,
is
that is
allowed
fine.
inside a classroom and what is not allowed inside a classroom is also based on that particular institution. In
Yes,
terms of government
that's
schools, the state government will decide. In private schools, the private schools will decide. So if somebody tomorrow comes and says, you're a doctor yourself, you will have rules in your clinic, you will have rules in your hospital, and somebody tomorrow comes out and says, why can't I do this? You will turn around and say, this is a hospital,
yes,
you're not allowed to follow rules.
I completely agree. I completely agree with what you are saying, but I am just saying that politicians or the clerics anywhere in the world, be it India or Iran or the rest of the world, they cannot decide what a woman should wear or what a woman should remove.
No, absolutely. If there is a certain level of public decorum, that is one aspect, and rules of the institution is another aspect. But this third point where they say that a woman is dignified, see, this is what they are trying to say. The dignity of a woman is decided whether or not she covers her head. How can somebody say something like that?
That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. Please don't go on what our politicians and what most of the Muslim clerics say. I'm sure they need to reinterpret Quran in the modern light because see, Sharia even has to evolve with years, with centuries, with age. This is 22nd century. I mean, this is 21st century. So this the whatever we were following in 1400 years back, that cannot go today. That cannot be practiced today. So Sharia definitely has to evolve. And the persons who are arguing, I mean, in the Supreme Court, I don't know where are they bringing these arguments from. Some things, there are few things that sound very crazy.
See, for when they were arguing in the Karnataka High Court, Patikrit Payan, they were saying it's an essential religious practice. Now they are saying, oh, don't see it as an essential religious practice, but something that is important to Islam. So is 50% of the population, Muslim population, going to decide for the remaining 50%?
That is, see, the most important
Anand, let me tell you something. Very recently, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting happened in Uzbekistan, and all the Central Asian countries are Muslim majority countries. In many of those countries, they actually consider the burqa and the hijab as some kind of an affront to the liberal values and the long-standing native cultural traditions that they have. So, interestingly, if you talk about India also, I mean, I have a connection to Bengal. Both Nazrul Islam and Rabindranath Tagore actually talked about, the rights of women, irrespective of religions. And interestingly, hijab has not been banned in India. It's just about uniform in a particular institution. If somebody joins the army, people cannot decide that I will have my own uniform because I believe in liberalism. Liberalism and modesty are two different things. Secondly, when you talk about a uniform in an organization, there has to be certain discipline, and that is important. Secondly, I think for certain organizations, the hijab is an alibi, Anand. Tomorrow it will be something else. I think the whole core objective is to create a sense of alienation, a sense of disenchantment, and a sense of fear mongering that they are against you, and so prepare for some big thing that would happen in future. So for organizations like PFI, I think what's unfortunate, they are actually propagating the Arabization of India's pluralistic Islam that has been known and been very famous in this country for a long period of time. And I think that's the beginning. That has to be stopped. That kind of Arabization. If you look at PFI, it has a long-standing influence of Wahhabism and Salafism in this. And we have seen what has happened in some of these Middle Eastern countries where Wahhabis and Salafis actually did away completely with the space for the moderates in Islam, and that is exactly what they're also trying to do by actually trying to influence through the Maulavis. If you look at what they're trying to do, they have a carrot and stick policy. They're going to the parents and say that if you allow your child to go to the school without the hijab, then you will be socially ostracized. So it's a very, very dangerous trend. And, there are people from the community who feel scared if they are told that they will be ostracized. So I think there is a deeper malice in it. It is not just about hijab. The hijab issue, I'm sure the Supreme Court will sort it out. Tomorrow it will be another issue. That is the core objective of organizations like PFI, to create a sense of disenchantment, to create a sense of alienation, And we have seen the way they are preparing for something, I don't know what sinister, preparing for some kind of
No,
a
it's
literal
not
fight
just
between Muslims.
disenchantment. The larger and the bigger worry is the deliberate misinterpretation or selective interpretation of the holy book, or how it should be, how Islam should be practiced, and what is an essential practice and what is not. And somewhere trying to turn people around and say this is the right way to do it, otherwise you are not a good Muslim, you are not a pious Muslim, you are not a good person, you are not a dignified person. This kind of brainwashing is very dangerous, and the PFI is being quite nefarious about this whole aspect. We got more news coming through as far as the PFI is concerned, why this organization is under scrutiny and needs to be dealt with, because now Muslim bodies and Muslim organizations also themselves are having a problem with outfits like the PFI because of the kind of vitriol that they are pushing and misinformation that they are pushing. PFI program in Kozhikode, coming from Kerala, the All India Imams Council State Secretary Afzal Qasim made a controversial statement. He said that in current times, Muslims must be ready to fight and lay down their lives against the Sangh Parivar, who is the enemy of Islam and the country. The program was held on the 17th of September in Kozhikode. Now, Muslim leaders from other groups and other sections of society who have turned around and rejected this and called out, and they have actually called for action against this person, saying they have accused the Imam of misinterpreting the Quran and the teachings of the Prophet. This is what Afzal Qasim had to say. Listen in.
സംഘപരിവാരം വർഗീയ കുപ്രചരണങ്ങൾ നടത്തുന്നതിന്റെ മുന്നിൽ ഞങ്ങൾ നിശബ്ദത പാലിക്കില്ല എന്ന് പറയാൻ ഈ ഉമ്മത്ത് ധീരത കാണിക്കേണ്ടതുണ്ട്. തെരുവിൽ കിടന്ന് തല്ലുകൊണ്ടിട്ട് ഇത് ഞങ്ങളുടെ സംയമനമാണെന്ന് പറയാനല്ല, മറിച്ച് ഞങ്ങളുടെ നേരെ കൈയൂങ്ങിയാൽ അതിനെ പ്രതിരോധിക്കാൻ ഞങ്ങൾ പ്രാപ്തരാണെന്ന് പറയാനുള്ള ഒരു ധൈര്യമാണ് ഈ സമൂഹം. ഇസ്ലാമിന്റെ ശത്രുക്കളായ, രാജ്യത്തിന്റെ ശത്രുക്കളായ സംഘപരിവാര ഫാസിസ്റ്റ് ദുർഭൂതങ്ങളുടെ മുന്നിൽ രക്തസാക്ഷിത്വ ഭരിക്കാൻ തയ്യാറായിക്കൊണ്ട് അല്ലാഹു റബ്ബുൽ ഇസ്സത്തിന് വേണ്ടി പോരാട്ടം നടത്താൻ.
Now you see, Pathikrit, what they are doing. This is how they twist the narrative. Where was the Sangh Parivar at the time of the Prophet? And where is the Sangh Parivar anyway, the enemy of Islam? Is this not a deliberate political agenda that's being pushed? He is a PFI leader. This organization emerges from the Simi and also from this one's whose stated objective is to oppose Hindus and the RSS. Now, if this is the case, and more importantly, the RSS. Now, if this is the case, this is the entire intent of the PFI. Why is this person given a platform like this, and why is he allowed to interpret the books? And that's why, rightly so, Muslim organizations have said, we reject this. This is not the right interpretation. So, how is this person getting any kind of authority?
Right, Anand, and that's why I have always stated that we have to codify what can actually be propagated and what not, because radicalism, as often, irrespective of religions, actually gets propagated in the name of propagation of religion. Secondly, if you look at what happened in Middle East, I think Middle East is a classic example. When ISIS came in Middle East, the first thing they did was to target other Muslims who were moderate, who did not believe in what they were doing, and they killed Shias en masse. They killed other minorities, and they also killed Sunni Muslims who did not adhere to what they believed in. Secondly, if you have a problem with Sangh Parivar, fight it out politically. And how many people actually believe or are members of Sangh Parivar? I mean, that is an alibi again they're using. Their ultimate objective, as I stated, is to actually, I don't know why. I mean, if that is what they're preparing for a Ghazwa in all over again, and fight it out against all the non-Muslims. In fact, there has been opposition, Anand, which was coming from the church also in Kerala in terms of some of the activities that are happening in that particular state concerning and associated with PFI. So it is a dangerous trend today, and it actually, the biggest victim today as of yet will be the Muslim community itself, because you will find gradually the moderate voices will be shunted out. It is unfortunate that moderate and liberal voices don't get that kind of traction that some of these PFI members and other organizations like them actually get.
No, it's
Because
because
carrot and
it's a double-edged sword, Pathikrit. You yourself had talked about it a short while ago. When the moderates start speaking up, they get intimidated, and then they get socially ostracized, and the situations are created where they're asked to either keep quiet or toe the line. So, Lubna ji, how should one counter these kind of rabid people who will deliberately spread misinformation and use religious platforms and religious texts to further their own nefarious political agenda?
See, now what I feel is if there is this implementation of uniform civil code, the first thing I would ask for is to keep religion within the four walls of the house. It should not be it is not something to be displayed on the road, and no one can decide for anyone else. I mean, no cleric, no political leader can decide for the people what one is supposed to do. Yes, that's it.
But should such people also not, the community,
See,
should they not come out and reject that?
the
There has to be
moderate
some way.
voices, the moderate voices should come up. The moderate people of all the religions, they should actually come up and they should speak. They should not be snubbed. I mean, of course, there would be people would try to snub them, but then they should actually try to speak, because they are the one who speak of some sense, and they only will be they will be the best people to dispel the fanaticism and the radicalism.
The other part is you made an interesting point saying that we need to have a common civil code. The other part is that religion is supposed to be practiced in
No,
your
but
house and not on the street,
I've
not
also
on the
said,
streets.
I've also said that, see, the whole this Indian politics is just now it is revolving around religion. So I've also said that reform code should be implemented, but the religion should be definitely kept within the house. It should
No, I
not
totally.
be.
No, I totally agree. See, what you personally practice, what you practice as your personal faith is your personal matter. When you are out in public, you are one particular citizen, and that is citizen of the citizen of India, and the rule of the constitution, rule of law. That's what applies to everybody. So, what you do when you take out processions, you take it out with public, with the law and order in consideration, with permission from the administration, and we'll celebrate everybody, every faith. So, at all points in time. Otherwise, you keep it inside your house. You don't try and flaunt it and impose it on somebody else. I,
Surprisingly, the countries with the most atheists population, they are the most progressive ones. They are the developed countries. The ones who are doomed with religion, they are developing, or they are on the they are still,
Well,
socio-economically,
Well,
they are backward.
the argument can swing either ways, because America as a nation may perceive it to be very neutral, but the fact is that their president has to swear upon the Bible and not on the take oath on the Bible and not on the Constitution. And till date, there has not been a non-Christian president of the United States of America. So there are other nations which allow, like India, vibrant democracies where all the firqas of all religion are present in its 1.4 billion population. And of course, that we have had people from all walks of life who have assumed the highest of the offices in our country. So the argument can go either ways, Lubna ji. But Pathikrit Pain, how can we resolve this? What needs to be done with outfits like PFI? You can arrest individual members, but how do you weed this entire organization out? And more importantly, what their intent is?
Anand, I think, the most important issue here for me, I think, and I think the biggest problem of India is that while we talk about liberalism, unfortunately, the state has never protected and given protection to liberal voices from the Muslim community. The liberal voices may come up and say something, and they might get castigated, they may get ostracized, they may get lynched. The state doesn't do much, because for many of the political parties, getting the vote is more important than actually to protect the liberal voice, because the liberals are always in minority. That's one part. Secondly, I think today, most of the police organizations, with due respect to them, they actually work from day to day on tactical basis.
Right.
There has to be strategic thinking into it. This is PFI today, or any organization like ASIMI. Their objective is something more sinister, and it is going to harm everybody. I think ISIS and Syria is a classic example that it has not benefited the Muslims at all. They have devastated the whole of Middle East, where all the Muslim majority countries have banned ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Reason is very simple. The moment you create an edifice of radicalism, it is from those radical beliefs and value systems that are not, I would not use the word value, or whatever is propagated in the name of radicalism, from there the terrorist is created. So I think we have to have, number one, codify as to what can be propagated, even while having freedom of speech and religion propagation. And number two, I think we need to understand that this is a problem, and PFI is a very, very intelligent organization, Anand, because they know where to, they have always remained below the radar. They have done everything, but they can't still be called a terror organization. So that is where it is a challenge.
This is how smart they have tried to become, that they have tried to de-link the campus front of India from PFI itself. The narrative over the last 2 years or last 6 months is that campus front of India is de-linked from PFI. Earlier, it used to be very promptly flaunted as the student wing or the campus wing of the PFI. Now they have tried to de-link. So you'll have campus front leaders who will come for debates, and they will come out and say that we are an independent organization, independent of the PFI. So that's how fast they are trying to evolve and set the narrative right. The evolution is also seen in court, where on the one hand in High Court they say it's an essential religious practice, and now in the Supreme Court they say don't look at it as an essential religious practice but an important component of Islam. So they'll play with the words and try and tweak the argument so that they can try and push for the narrative that they want. So all of this is there and everybody is watching. Let's hope the wisdom of the judges prevails for the good of the country. Thank you for your inputs, Lubna ji, and also Patikrit Payan. We got more news coming through with respect to the PFI. Here, we've just got news coming through. Leader of the Popular Front of India, Abu Bakr Siddiq, he's been arrested, and this arrest happened on Monday in connection with the killing of the RSS leader S.K. Srinivasan in Kerala's Palakkad district in April this year. Now, as per sources, evidence including CCTV visuals, eyewitness statements have indicted the PFI leader. He has also been accused of creating a hit list of netas and community leaders. Rejecting the charges against Siddiq, the PFI has accused the Kerala government of trying to hunt down its workers, as it was upset with a huge turnout over its recent Kozhikode rally, the same rally where the call to arms was made. 27 suspects linked to the PFI have been arrested in connection with Srinivasan's killing. Neetu Raghukumar now joins us with more. So on the one hand, you have the likes of Afzal Qasim, who makes those vitriolic remarks on that Kozhikode rally. On the other hand, Abu Bakr Siddiq, who's now been indicted and arrested as one of the 27 accused in the murder of Srinivasan.
That's correct. He's the 27th accused in the murder of Srinivasan, who's an RSS leader. This murder happened on April 16th. According to the police, the police have initially submitted a charge sheet for about 26 people. And this is a 27th arrest that they have made. In the charge sheet itself in court, they had informed that this is only part A. There will be more people involved in this. They are looking at the entire conspiracy, not just the people who participated in the actual crime or helped them after that, but they are looking into the entire conspiracy. According to the police, they have eyewitness statements, CCTV records, call records of this leader with those involved in the crime, and saying that only on that particular time there were calls to and fro. Either previously or after that there have not been any calls. So all these tower locations, these are all evidence that the police have collected, and police say that there will be more arrests in connection with this.
But what is the PFI's point of view, and where was Abu Bakr Siddiq when he was arrested, Neetu?
He was arrested from his house that is what the police have told us. But what the PFI is telling is that this is a witch hunt by the Kerala LDF government. They are upset with the turnover of people that has come in for this PFI meeting in Kozhikode, and that is forcing them to take this extreme step. So the PFI clearly stating that this is a witch hunt against them.
Well, thank you for your inputs, Neetu. We're going to take a very, very short break here on The Nation at 5. Stay with us.